This program is suitable for general viewing.
Exactly 14 minutes past top of the hour. My name is Faisal Kassim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the live Real Talk. And you do remember, you do recall, even as you are watching this program, even as it's starting, human rights is one of the key components that we try to focus on right here on live Real Talk. A show that you tune in every Thursday from 8:15 all the way to 9, keeping us company and listening to nice conversation happening right here in studio. My name is Faisal Kassim and welcome to the live Real Talk. And tonight we're talking about something that has interested many people both locally and globally. When it all started saying that, you know, after 10 years you're going to be required to replace your ID, there was a lot of noise about it. Why do we need to renew your citizenship? What are the chances of things that could be used to manipulate the whole re-registration or renewal of the ID, right? That is number one. So this whole issue of Maisha Number that the government has rolled out, of course they've said it's not compulsory, but again, it's already outside there. Some people went to court to try and block the rolling out of this project. And of course, they did not start today. They started with the previous administration when they introduced the Huduma number. Basically, the essence of this card is a unifying card that's supposed to bring in all these other services or elements of government entities into one card. So you have one unique identifier number, whereby now you don't need to work with your NHIF card, you don't need to work with your NSSF card, you don't need to work with your driver's license, neither do you have to work with your passport or identity, national identity. So you just need to work with this card, which you will be using to access all these other services. I remember the previous administration at some point, they said, for you to access government services, you will need to register for Huduma number. The activists and the civil society organizations went to court to stop that process. And of course, by the time, the case had not even ended yet, and we got to election, and now we're here. So this new administration, they've enrolled and they've rolled out Maisha Number. The purpose, still the same as the Huduma number, that it centralizes all these other cards, all these other services, all these forms of identifications from various government entities into one unique identifier number. That, they said, it is issued at birth. Does it have pros? Yes. Does it have cons? Probably yes. But it's not in my position to say, because I am just but a facilitator and a moderator. And tonight I am a host, hosting one of the representatives from one of the organizations that took the government to court. Not to mention that this organization has been dealing with matters of citizenship for a very long time. Why? Because they started their offshooting, their rooting was from a community that has been marginalized, especially when it comes to human rights and citizenship. Ladies and gentlemen, our beloved viewers, welcome Yasah Musa, who is a project manager at the Nubian Rights Forum. Ndugu, assalamu alaikum
wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Always a pleasure, ndugu yangu, to have you back here.
Thank you sana, asante sana. Yeah.
Habari ya maandamano imeisha now.
Maandamano.
You are a very popular face during the maandamano. We could see you, of course, with a bunch of other civil society organization members and Kenyans at large. You are a very popular face there. Maandamano imeisha?
Maandamano, to my heart, haijaisha. Because we really need to make sure that we hold this government into account.
Yes.
Because we don't have even opposition. The opposition has gone to the government. Now they're doing deals, right, left, right, center. Just yesterday you saw what happened in JKIA. There's a lot of shady deals that are happening. So Maandamano is just restructuring ourselves, training the public, letting them to understand the role of MCAs, the role of MPs, governors, so that at least when we're coming back, we have objectives. I
mean, of course, we're looking forward to have that conversation on a different day. But again, on Monday, the CS for Interior, Honorable Kithure Kindiki, came out and said that the government, all systems are set to roll out the new Maisha number, the unique identifier number that is going to be distributed all over. And of course, it's something that you strongly oppose and strongly contested, not just from now, but even from Huduma number that was introduced by the previous regime. led by His Excellency, the former President Uhuru Kenyatta. And now this government has gone out and said that all systems are ready to roll out. You are still in court to stop this process, to stop the Maisha number rolling out. Why do you want this thing to be stopped?
The reason we want this thing to be stopped, number one, there is something called public participation. We have to make sure that the whole nation understands what is Maisha number. When you look at the current Maisha number and the previous Huduma number, they're more likely the same because it's only the name Maisha which has been replaced from Huduma. So when you look at Huduma, it was about services. You've talked about all services being centralized. There is one challenge with centralization, and I will just use one example of putting all eggs in one bucket. The moment it falls down, you stand a risk of losing all the eggs.
But don't you think by bringing all these other forms of identifications for as far as they're related to the government in one way or another, don't you think putting them together, right, bringing them, centralizing, will be beneficial to the citizens at the end of the day?
One of the things that we've seen, centralization has not worked. Look at what is happening with e-Citizen. Payments of all payments is meant to go under one till. When you go to KWS, just here at Langata, you'll find people waking up at as early as 5 a.m. in the morning, but they're queuing, and then they're going to the national park at 10. So this means there is a lot of challenges, there is a lot of delays. You've seen what has been happening with the backlog of identification cards and also passports. So bringing all these issues into one place, it's something that it needs to be, they need to do experiments. They need to show us how it has worked so that at least when we are coming into it, we already know what is happening. You've said we are we are against the digital ID. We are not actually against the digital ID. We are against the processes. When you look at the government calling people, saying this is public participation. On the other side, they're saying it is public sensitization. When you look at registrars, you've totally said that the government said that application of digital ID is going to be free and it's not going to be mandatory. But for you to access e-Citizen, you need an ID. For you to access e-Citizen, you need access to internet. In Kenya, when you look at access to internet, we are at 32%. So it means even if we go fully on digital, close to 78% people will be locked out, and that's a huge number. Another challenge is the current government, they are using the previous data that they were told to do away with. So doing away with the data of Huduma number so that they can come up with a fresh one, that is not something they've done.
But I think when you go to register for Maisha number, then you need to give your details afresh.
Yeah,
is it not so?
No. If you're replacing, we don't really know what is happening, because the reason why we went to court is we wanted the whole process to stop so that when we are starting, everything starts afresh. But the government has more data that they collected from the previous Maisha Huduma number. We have a court case at the Court of Appeal. It was supposed to be heard as early as 2020, but up to now we're still waiting for the hearing. Then the government keeps on saying we are done with the previous Huduma number, but they're still in court trying to justify why the previous Huduma number didn't work.
So the government still in court to defend the previous Huduma number.
And they're openly, openly they're like, we are done with the previous Maisha number or Huduma number, and we've learned so many things, so we'd want to work well and would want to do things clean. But the data that they're using, the previous data, we have lawyers who are advocating and they're going to be defending the previous case at the Court of Appeal. What they've been doing is delaying tactics, and this is something that we would wish and hope that the courts are able to solve and sort it out, so that we come to see the judgment from the previous Huduma number and the judgment which is coming for this Maisha number currently now. Because
indulge me in this one, Yasah. I'd really like to know and understand. You mentioned you're not really against digital ID per se. What you're against is the processes that the government is trying to use. You mentioned about public participation. You mentioned about using of data. So please just kindly expound on that. So hypothetically speaking, if today the government decides to go out and conduct, let's say, public participation, and it's conceived that, the public is okay with it, would you then be okay with it?
Definitely, when we talk about public participation, we talk about inclusive public participation, not just an information meeting where you're coming to tell us this is digital ID. For instance, we were invited to have a breakfast meeting with the government, and the conversation that they were coming up with were things that they've already managed to do it. So the reason why we went to court, just to highlight, was the issues of exclusion. When you look at the Somalis, the Nubian communities, and other communities who are at risk of becoming stateless, they don't have documentation to migrate to digital ID. When we look at issues of data protection, in Kenya we didn't have data protection, and for us going to court, we came up with the data protection 2019, but Katiba Institute went to court and to talk about the issues of data protection impact assessment. The court issued a rule, told the government to do data protection impact assessment before rolling out. They haven't done that. There is an issue of collecting too much information, including, I will give an example. When Boniface Mwangi was taken to court, the DCI wanted to, they say that they don't know where he lives, they don't know the things that he does. He's not a public, he's a public figure, but the things that he does are private. Where I live is my private thing. Where I work is private, but if you want information and to audit me, that's another thing. So this is confusion to the public, that you really need to share your location, you really need to share where you live, and from previous experiences we've had with government, people being abducted. So you share information which is required. The issue of centralization. Centralization has a problem. If I want to go into details about your health issues, I don't need to go to NHIF, I don't need to go to hospital, I just need to go to that centralized system. If I want to know about your bank accounts, I don't need to go to the account. I just need your ID or Maisha number so that I can access all information about you. That is so risky.
So the question that I'm asking is that what is stopping whoever who may want to do whatever malice they need to do with that information? What is stopping them now from doing it?
What is stopping them now? You will have to really work hard. You will need to go to the Ministry of Health. You will have to go to the Ministry of Sports. You will have to go to the banks to get information about Yasah. But now, if this system is put in one centralized system, I only need to go to State House or wherever place this information will be stored and get all information about you. You know, and any information that is shared, the previous Huduma bill said that we will only notify you. So if I breach the information about Faisal, you'll only get information that your information has been breached. There's no where you'll go, there's no place that you'll report, there's no remedies or circumstances or ways you can be able to defend yourself. So these are risks that we are talking about.
So let me ask again, just out of ignorance, so right now the information that you have given the government about you, do you have control over what the government is trying to do or is doing with that information?
Currently, you don't have control, and that is why they were told to do data protection impact assessment, so that we get to know what type of information do you have? How are you going to use this information? Because lately, abductions has been happening, and this is because people are sharing information, is leaking left, right, and center. So we have to be very strategic in making sure that our information, my information, which is needed, if I'm a project manager of Nubian Rights Forum, look for information about what I do, okay? If I play sports, would look for information about my sports. But the risk of looking for my information through a same database is not good. For the discriminated communities, we have issues of distance. For places like Kwale, for places like Wajir, Mandera, people walk for days to go and apply for these documents. You'd find a committee of vetting taking place after 2 years. So if a child turned 18 years, they have to wait for 2 years so that at least they can apply for that document. That is not digital, because waiting for longer is not solving anything. The issues of increasing the prices. Application of identification cards used to be free. Replacement used to be 100 shillings, which was brought by Matiang'i, but before it used to be free. Right now, they have increased the charges to 1,000 bob for application of new identification card. Remember, people live under 400 shillings a day in Kenya. So you'll have to prioritize. Should I take digital ID or should I just make sure that I go to school? Look at the children who maybe from African countries. You'd find a family having 8 children. That family, sometimes the father is not there or the mother is dead. She or they are raised by a grandmother. The grandmother has to travel all the way from Wajir to Garissa town. That is transport that is needed. From Garissa, you need to go and verify your birth certificates. Let's say you have 8 birth certificates. Each one of them costs 500 shillings. That is 4,000 shillings. That is against Sustainable Development Goal 16.9, where we're saying legal identity for all, including free birth registration and birth certificates. But birth certificates right now, you have to pay. And discrimination for the for minority groups, you have to go and verify your document identification card. Right now in Kibra, Nubians are told to go and verify their birth certificates at Bishop House. When you go to Bishop House, they will tell you the system is digital. Go back to Huduma Center in Kibra so that your document can be verified. In the new laws, they have stated that the registrars have the mandate to collect all birth certificates, go and verify by themselves, and then bring it back to the clients for them to apply identification cards. So all these processes, we are saying we have to make sure there is inclusivity. There is data protection. There is transitional period. You know, people need to understand digital literacy. You cannot tell a grandmother or a parent who's not gone to school to go and apply for an identification card or a passport online. What knowledge do they need to have so that they can apply for these documents?
I had a discussion with an officer from the NRB, the National Registration Bureau, and that was off the cuff. I had a meeting and we were just having a discussion, we were chatting, and he's a senior officer there, and I asked him, so in 2 days' time, actually the meeting I think was yesterday, so I told him, on Tuesday, sorry, that was when we met, and I asked him, I told him, in 2 days' time, the government will be rolling out the digital ID, the Maisha Number and all that. Will that in any way affect the normal identification issuing process? And he told me, no, if anything, they're going to move in concurrence.
How are they going to move into concurrence?
So you want to acquire the digital ID, then by all means you can go and acquire the digital ID as you wish. But at the same time, those who want to get the new generation ID, as it's called right now, then you can go ahead and get the new generation ID.
Actually, I would want you to do a statistics. Go and look at any person who's been doing replacement of their identification cards. All of them has expiry dates. All of them are called Maisha Number. All of them have the microchip. So when the government is telling us, actually the government is rolling out Maisha Number illegally without sorting out the issues that are in court. We have 2 cases. Previous case that was Kenya Human Rights Commission, Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, Nubian Rights Forum. It has not been heard up to now. The data that is being used is from the previous case. And now, any application that you do, you will be given Maisha Number with an expiry date. And we have so much ignorance with our government and top officials. To an extent, you'd find someone saying, this is an international conversation. Can you travel with your ID card? Can you leave the country with your ID card? Because I heard you saying probably you'll be using the ID card. You need a passport, you see. And that passport has to be paid for. The ID card has to be paid for. And we have expiry dates. We have good experience from Uganda. They have a case in court because the elderly people and those people who are not enrolled during the digital ID, when they are coming with digital ID around 2017, 2016, they cannot be enrolled back because the system has an expiry date. So anyone who was not logged in will have to be locked out up to now.
So
lastly, we have Tanzania. Tanzania are really distancing themselves from what do we call the expiry date, because they are finding out that this is something which is not functioning and it has really affected many people in Tanzania. And then you'd find a Kenyan official saying, we've seen this thing being enrolled in Uganda, we've seen this thing being enrolled in Tanzania. It's like we are talking to kids and making fun out of people's lives, because millions of people are going to be excluded out of this digital ID if we don't watch out.
Great. I want you to hold it there because it's exactly that 4 minutes past 8 o'clock and we are due for our fast break right here. Lazima tulipe ushuru. Kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea. Kulipa ushuru ni kupata pesa. Kupata pesa ni advertisement. And that's what we're going to do right now. Let's get these advertisements.
HorizonTV, the beacon for the nation. Verse of the day.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
ولا يأتل أولو الفضل منكم والسعة أن يؤتوا أولي القربى والمساكين والمهاجرين في سبيل الله وليعفوا وليصفحوا ألا تحبون أن يغفر الله لكم ألا تحبون أن يغفر الله لكم والله غفور رحيم.
Katika kipindi kijacho,
tupu unaihifadhi kwa mke wako, si kuihifadhi tupu kwa mke wako mwanaume mwenzako, ama mwanamke kwa mwanamke. Alafu mimi swali pia linishanishinda sana mpaka leo hii, mwanamke kwa mwanamke, malesbianism wanafanyaga nini kumalizana matamanio yao? Ni kitu ambacho kwamba Allah wa azza wa jalla aliumba positive na negative. Hizi zinaposhikana kunapatikana impact. Lakini ndume na ndume mwenzake, Sheikh, John na Patrick, watu wanaguruma, hey, sema I love you. Na wawili, mwanamke na mwanamke mwenzake, nini mtazungumza?
Are you looking to stay informed about the amazing stories within the Muslim community? Do you want to hear inspiring stories and insightful discussions about faith, culture, and current events? Tune in to the Muslim Insight, your weekly news updates, where we tell you stories that matter to you. The Muslim Insight, informing, inspiring, every Friday from 8 a.m. with me, Zamzam Ahmed.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون.
Enyi mlioamini, munapoitwa kuhudhuria swala ya Ijumaa, fanyeni haraka kuikimbilia, muache biashara zenu, hilo ni bora ikiwa mwelewa.
Isikilizeni kwa umakinifu khutba ya Ijumaa
ili uzidi kujenga imani yako na kupata faida nyingi ya siku hii.
Coming to you every Friday from Jamia Mosque, Nairobi.
Live on Horizon TV.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, we have the air condition right here inside the studio, but oof, it's hot, man. Where? Someone is speaking. Mtu amekasirika, amesema serious issue talking about citizenship and Maisha Number. Of course, the Nubian Rights Forum has been on the forefront trying to help the marginalized communities to acquire identification card. Not just identification, even birth certificate. Can you imagine there are people walking on the streets without birth certificates, people working on this with identification cards for years? They're applying, they're still applying, it's still in the process. So that's what NRF has been doing, and that was their pilot project, and that's their cornerstone project until today, hopefully until the day that everyone will get an ID without any discrimination, none whatsoever. Then NRF will find something else to do. But anyway, I'm with the project manager here of Nubian Rights Forum, Yasah Musa. Karibu sana Yasah. And we were talking about the whole aspect of the transition from new generation to digital ID. And one of the key things that I heard you saying is that you were against the process. So there are very many factors to the process. You also mentioned about the court case, right? Yeah. So what is the status of the court case now that already the government has decided to roll out? And still, I asked you, what if the citizens themselves, they want the Maisha Number?
You know, when you talk about the citizens wanting themselves Maisha Number, look at the challenges that the youths are having right now. When you go to apply for ID card, when you go to apply for a passport, you're applying for a document as if you're begging. Even the reception that you get from all these offices, first you'll meet an AP, administration police. They'll have to scare you off. Secondly, you'll have to go to the registration office as if you're speaking to a king. This is an ID. The government officials have been saying getting an ID, it's easy. But you will get an ID or passport if you have the big bosses, or if you have a very sensitive letter. Maybe a doctor has written you need a passport to go to India. Yeah. But when you look at last year, the situation was tough. To an extent, people were selling books. You'd find books are missing. People are selling one book of 64 pages at 20,000 shillings. People are selling books at 50,000 shillings. So there is a lot of corruption that is happening. The system that we are talking about is about the process. In ID card application takes 24 working days. When you go to apply, there is that level of discrimination. Like for you, Faisal, with your beards and your skin color, you'll be treated differently. Like for me, I'd be treated like a Luo. The moment they will hear I am Yasah Musa, and then they'll step back. They'll ask me for so many documents. And that is something that has been happening before the new digital ID. We have 68% of youths who are unemployed, and most of them do not have identification cards. I used to be thinking that ID card is meant for me not getting harassed by the police. But go to police stations, so many youths are rotting because they don't have ID cards. When a police harasses you, you don't have an ID card, then they'll abduct you or they'll tell you you're smoking weed or you're doing something. So they'll have a reason to take you behind bars. We've talked about procurement.
The proverbial when they say, wapi kijana wapi kipande?
Kabisa.
So,
that is the situation on the ground.
So the moment you stop, then you ask, kijana wapi kipande? Yet, the same government that they're serving, it's still frustrating you to get the identification card.
Identification card. Because the application system and the processes are so weird. You can get your passport in 1 day. I can get my passport in 10 years. As we speak, there are people who've spent years without getting identification card. So instead of government sorting out these bureaucracies, the vetting processes, the challenges that is happening, the distances.
But I thought the vetting process was abolished.
The vetting process was abolished, but it was brought up with new lines, new ideas. You need to be, your documents has to be checked in by NIS. What is the work of NIS in my identification card? What does a security committee needs to do with me becoming a Kenyan? If, when you look at the constitution, it only says you need a copy of your parents' ID card, your birth certificate. If not birth certificate, a proof of where you were born. And that proof is maybe for Catholics or baptismal card, for Muslim madrasa. But most time the madrasa documents are not accepted. Then when you go to issues about procurement, we don't really know where this procurement comes from. Previous government, they kept on saying this was local brains, they made it, but only to find that Otimofo, which is in front, is the one which is behind all these identification cards. They use close to 11 to 13 billion Kenyan shillings. Where is that money? Right now, we don't even know the procurement, how it was done. We've had hearsays that the process is coming from Pakistan. We know Pakistan doesn't have GDPR data protection laws. When we talk about France, we don't even know who is the person who is giving all these details to France. Look at the cases that have happened before when in the Supreme Court, people are saying the servers are in France. This is the same situation that is happening. We have all our data that has been collected and it's being stored somewhere. Someone is using our information for something else. That's why you've heard there's something called data is the new oil. This is not something that we want. There is a lot of corruption. There is a lot of shady deals that is happening. The government is not open. We don't even know who is behind e-Citizen, because e-Citizen...
So all these shady deals that you say are happening and corruption that is happening,
yes,
you have substantial evidence of what's happening?
Definitely when we move on issue... this should be an investigation that should be done, because...
So what you're calling for is an investigation?
Yeah, an investigation, because...
there is corruption or malpractice happening?
Yeah.
Okay.
For example, someone will just come and tell you, hii passport yako utapata. But when you go and speak to him in a different way, they will definitely get your passport. Yeah. We have an extent whereby someone is called Muhammad Ibrahim, but when you look at the face, it's totally different. Or you're given an identification card, you're going to use it, it is against you. What is happening now, the banks are not accepting digital ID. The government has not really transitioned to make sure that all the information that they have, they give it to the banks. So when you go with your digital ID, the banks they kind of see you as a different person. So all these things, they need to be put into place. That's why I was talking about transitional period, the government giving us period time. Because I can give you scenarios about the issues of corruption. There is a time we had a meeting last year. And that meeting, when you looked at the government, they were talking about launching digital ID, but they didn't have money. But availability of money just came into place. They were launching the Maisha Number in 2023, around October. But for us going to court, we had to stop it by December. They came up with a narrative just 2 months ago. You'd seen TV stations, people saying, I cannot enroll to my university because of lack of ID. Lack of identification card has been there even before us going to court. So we need to make sure all these processes are sorted out. But the funny thing enough is you'd find people Faisal Kassim 4 times. You'll find Yasah Musa 17 times. Different ages, different names, different locations, but the face is still the same. So it means if you're good in corruption and you're good in doing shady deals, you can be given an identification card. I once walked when I was looking for my identification card years back. The registrar took an ID card, looked at me, and then returned it back and said it's not yet ready. So I had to go back, but the document was there. And this is something, I've gone to school, I'm learned, I can read, I can understand. What about those people who do not understand? What about those people who will only hear Ruto is coming, so they're just coming to see that guy. And then Ruto is coming with this good, it's like a dreamland telling people digital ID is accepted worldwide. Look at USA. USA, they are using driving licenses, and driving licenses are not identification cards. And it's not all the 50 states, it's different states that are using identification cards. There is no interprobability in Kenya. For instance, your digital ID is not working. What is the alternative? There is no alternative. The government are saying registration is not mandatory, but when you look at X, when you look at the way they're speaking, watch out, you might be left out. Register so quickly so that you're not left out. So are you telling us it is free, or you're telling us it is going to be to have a transitional period whereby if you don't register for Huduma number or Maisha number, you are locked out? Yeah.
Have you engaged the government on one-on-one and air out your concerns? I mean, out of court or in corridors or in offices, have you engaged the government, the administration, whether the PS or the CS or the directors in any of these parastatals? Have you had that engagement?
We've had several engagements. We've called the government. We've told them we are not fighting. We just want you guys to come up with processes, laws that are in place. They've been calling, when you, I think, look at the trend that has been happening. The government has been coming up with a gazette notice. Public participation is going to take place. But do you know when? They will invite you 2 days prior. They will go and give you the document the same day you're doing the same, they call it public participation. So that is the period you're supposed to go through the whole process. They're supposed to do their whole presentation, and they're supposed to give you time to ask questions. All that process that we have always been happening, media has never been there. Most of the time we are called into a good hotel, we have breakfast, and then they call it public participation. But that is not public participation, because what happens is all the TV stations, media houses, they are left outside. We have a small meeting of a whole 1 hour, people explain who they are, like someone introducing themselves, a whole 1 hour you're introducing yourself. Who are you? And then a whole 2 hours for the government to present what good ID is. And then after moving out, we have had conversation with civil societies, and we have agreed to this. If we do agree, why do we go to court? Why do we address these issues? Because there are specific key issues that the government needs to address. When you look at digital ID, they give an example of Estonia. Estonia is a first world country. They have 92% literacy. They have 90% internet access. They have alternatives, and it is not mandatory. They are using decentralized system. Here, we want to use centralized system, and we are saying we had benchmarked from Estonia. We want to make it mandatory, yet we have access of internet at 32%. We want to make it mandatory, yet we have the elderly who do not even understand the process. We want to make it mandatory, yet the process of application is tedious. People are dying. People have no time to go and apply for these documents, because now it has been made. Ask any youth right now. Manze mi siwezi apply for ID, manze. Sahi ID tao moja, manze. Youths, they live with 30 shillings per day. It sounds like funny, but you'd find
sounds like a movie, man.
Yeah, it's like a movie, but go to Kibera right now. Youths are sleeping hungry, and they can find 30 shillings to 50 shillings to just feed their stomach. Others have missed out of opportunities. Go and speak to footballers. They can't travel abroad because the moment you get an opportunity, you are invited, the application process is lengthened. You are questioned. Or bring this, bring this. Sometimes you don't have money, so you have to dilly-dally. Should I pay for passport? Should I pay for this opportunity of scholarship, or should I pay for so many things? and then you're adding more money in application. Do you know right now any person, any child who's born outside Kenya is going to be paying 19,000 shillings for reapplication of birth certificates in Kenya? So it means anyone who's working in Dubai who's earning 60,000, they have to put aside their 20,000 shillings to apply for birth certificate of their children, which is supposed to be free. That is insane. So we are in a government, we are in a country whereby we are in a country. I will give another funny example where JKIA will be sold for 1.8 billion, and in Rwanda they'll still construct the same airport with 1.3 billion and being given 52 aeroplanes. So we are in a funny country, we are in a funny place, and it looks like you have to be a funny person and a joker to be in this government, because everything. So
we're living in a circus that you have to be a clown for you to fit in.
Yeah, you have to be a clown, you have to be a liar, you have to give people lies and hope so that at least when they look at you, they are able to say, okay, let's vote for him.
So Yasah, what's the way forward for the Nubian Rights Forum and of course the Katiba Institute and many, basically the whole consortium that you guys went to court? What is the way forward for you guys? What then are you planning to do now that you're already here?
You know,
rolling it out,
the challenge with the digital ID, whatever that is collected cannot be reversed. If I collect information about you, I will really have to go to all the platforms to delete them. So the government needs to reverse itself back. The government needs to understand we are in a third world country. We are in Africa. We are not rushing anything. What is the rush of this new digital ID?
So what are you planning to do then?
What we're planning to do, actually, I'd like HorizonTV to make sure that the public listens and understands what digital ID is. I'd like the citizens, those who do not have identification cards. It doesn't need Nubian Rights Forum, Katiba Institute. All those people, youths who do not have identification cards, they need to go to the registrar's office, they need to camp there, and they need to be issued with their identification cards. If the policies are not favoring the application process, they need to be revised. We cannot have a policy that says ID card has a period of 1 month and you're given your ID card. Passport has a period of 2 weeks and you're given your passport. But we have people up to now, they have applied for passports 2 years down the line. They don't have it. So the government has to make sure all these processes are into place. They have to educate their registrars, because registrars are not familiar with even the new laws that are coming into place. They have to differentiate between security and nationality and citizenship. So our way forward is to make sure that the public understands we will still go to court, and the beauty about court, even if it takes 10 years, you will still have a judgment, and that judgment can be used in other countries, of which we hope that we can be able to have a better future, a better country where we are not forced to register for Maisha Number, but we are told the importance of Maisha Number, and we are given alternatives. If I don't want to go with a bot, Faisal, will you force me?
I shouldn't.
You shouldn't force me. Oh. If I don't want to go with a bot, I want an alternative that will take me there. Give me that alternative so that at least I can understand and appreciate the bot. But you cannot force me to use the bot, and the waves that are coming, I will not appreciate it. Let me use this other process. If I want to transition, I transition well. Lastly, recognize the stateless communities, the minority groups. Do not put barriers for application. For instance, John Onyango will go and apply for passport and ID, especially ID, they will get within 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Yasah Musa will go and apply for ID card. I'll be asked where I come from. I'll be asked where is my grandfather's document. I'll be asked why am I a Muslim. I'll be asked why are you called Yasah Musa and you're not white, you don't have a curled hair. Those so many funny questions are the things that we want the government to make sure they stop it before they move forward into their Maisha Number.
Wow. Yasah Musa, project manager, Nubian Rights Forum. I mean, hey, man. Wow.
It's a lot, lakini tuite katika hizi shows.
A lot to comprehend, a lot of information. It's basically just a lot to comprehend. I mean, for me being here, right here in studio, I mean, listening to some of these stories, listening to some of these things that are actually happening down there on ground. It's an eye-opener, and I'm sure it is an eye-opener for you as well. I cannot help but think about, for example, that young man who is probably my age and living below $1 a day, 30 shillings a day, and doesn't have an identification card, and cannot access employment. Lakini mjengo anaweza fanya?
Mjengo hawezi fanya because kwa mjengo you need an ID. For instance, kazi mtaani, it is coming back.
Yes.
All payments are going to be online. So kama wewe Faisal hauna ID,
sina M-Pesa.
Hauna M-Pesa, you are nobody. You don't exist. Actually in Kenya, if you don't have an ID, you don't exist, because opening bank account, opening a SIM card, receiving money, going to hospital, even accessing government buildings, you need to have an ID. Umeona most times unafika pale kwa register ama pale kwa gate unaambiwa weka ID yako, number, so there are people who do not have that. And the risks that they are having, sometimes I'll just come to you as Faisal, ni aje bro, sinitumie simu yako na ID yako ndo nipate pa kazi mtaani. What will you tell me? Ni aje bro, kwa hiyo 10,000 mimi nataka 3,000, jisuni mimi ni do imepita kwangu, so hiyo do mimi naitaka. Unaona, that is the situation that is happening. Yeah, those are the cartels. And funny thing, it won't stop for now, because even the supervisors, so the supervisor will find it a good opportunity. There are 10 people without ID cards, hapa ni mali yangu ya kukula. I will look for demi yangu, mpango wa kando, mtoto wangu, register them all, they receive the money, give to this person. So people are really suffering, and we wish Gava delivers and Ruto listens. Ruto does not listen. Kindly, Ruto, listen and listen. Watu wapate ID. Thank you.
Sina zaidi, sina maoni. Sote tumalizie hapo. Actually, I'm overriding with 1 minute. Ladies and gentlemen, beloved viewers, come on. We need to go out there and get information. We need to read. We need to get this information. All these that we've gotten here, I think. NRF, they have their social media handles. I'm sure that they do have a lot. But that's just part of our website. Anybody on our website?
Website tilifanywa mambo. I think the moment we started going to court mambo na Maisha Number, Huduma Number, there was a lot of hacking. To an extent, you go to our website, you will just read Japanese and Chinese. Yeah, we've been hacked so many times. Tumeweka certificates, nini, unapata 19 logins. Every time we place something, they hack it. So currently, we can say we are very active on social media, which is Twitter. We are called the Nubian Rights Forum, and Facebook. The rest probably we can share. But our website is still www.nubianrightsforum.org.
Hi now, Sasi. Thank you so much. Man, that was Yasah Musa from the Nubian Rights Forum. Guys, I cannot speak much. Hey, mpaka kuhakiwa iko hapa hivi ndani. Anyway, see you next week, same time. My name is Faisal Kassim. It has been an honor and palm-pleasing pleasure to be your host this evening, inshallah. Until we see each other again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.